Some of the things we've been talking about, and Ryan is excellent with getting kick times, but we now have the template for Ryan to go to work on that because yesterday the Penn State football schedule was revealed in its entirety, in its linear fashion, as it will happen on the actual calendar. So Greg wrote about that at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We previewed that on the show yesterday, but I just wanted to get the general reaction from you guys because fans are very interested in this. They want to know, how does it set up, good or bad for Penn State? And then, of course, start making their plans and travel arrangements to join us here in Happy Valley. So here is the schedule. We'll get into it, maybe not line by line, but a week 4 bye and a week 9 bye. The highlight of that is right before a trip to Ohio State in week 10, and of course, hosting Oregon in September. So starting out with a very strong schedule out of the Big Ten gate at home, big deal. And of course, coming off a bye. So what do you guys think? Ryan, what do you think of the schedule generally? As good or bad, advantageous, disadvantage for Penn State?
I think I'm going to be going to watch a lot of high school games in September. That's what I think I'm going to be doing because, man, Nevada, FIU, Villanova is rough. I got to be honest. And I understand it completely, right? James has talked about this multiple times about, why are we hurting our chances? And I understand why Penn State fans don't like that. I get it. The West Virginia games are fun. Auburn's fun. There's a lot of reason to still have those games, and ticket sales and all those things are important. So we'll see down the road. Obviously, they have Syracuse lined up. I still feel like there's going to be some sort of Big Ten SEC agreement deal, something down the road. I just feel like it's the networks will want it. I think it evens the playing field for it'll be like the ACC Big Ten Challenge kind of. I just feel like that will happen down the road. And the fact that I don't ever see Penn State scheduling, tougher opponents down the road. I know we don't want to read into that too much, but I just feel like that's still something we're going to see maybe towards the latter half of this decade. But, the schedule is definitely harder than this year. Obviously, trips to Iowa, always difficult. We'll see UCLA right after Oregon stands out to me. That's a tough little stretch there going all the way out to the West Coast after you have to play Oregon at home. But, we'll see if Indiana can bounce back and do what they did this year. Kind of think that's going to be difficult to set that standard for a school that size or that with that, whatever you want to call it, marquee, whatever. And then we'll see with Nebraska, will Dylan Raiola take that next step? Will they get those transfers in there that they need to take that next step as a program this year? So, yeah, it's not my favorite schedule from a home perspective. I feel like we're looking at it right now. It's kind of meh. But, I didn't expect Indiana to be in the college football playoff this year. And we'll see with Nebraska. There is stuff there with Nebraska. I don't know. I feel like I say that every year and they never take the next step.
Yeah, and I guess that's the same question. Illinois has had a hard time sustaining what they were a very good program, and they were still a good program this year, but not necessarily the program that has been building. So I guess the question is, does Indiana maintain and sustain this level of success? Was it driven partially by their schedule this year? And so those are things that I don't know at this point. And I guess just Fitz, I know you're a big fan of Kurt Nittany, the head coach at Indiana. Do you have faith that will be a competitive game in the way that we've seen them be dominant against teams below them in a similar fashion to Penn State of being able to win all the games they're supposed to win on their schedule in this first year under Kirk Cinetti?
Yeah, they did a really good job. I mean, here's the thing: you got to separate that from the actual performance because that was impressive as well. Like they pounded teams. So I think really the bigger thing is when we move to that frog is back. When we move to bigger conferences, we really watered down a lot of it. Like you can take away divisions, you can take away some of the things that you had in the last decade. But 18 teams in a league, you're going to protect some of your top guys. I think that's pretty obvious. But at the same time, it's like you're not going to have all quality wins. You're going to play Northwestern. You're going to play, they play at Rutgers, which could be a tricky situation. Like at the end of the year,
You're saying the opposite of what James Franklin says, though, that the Big Ten has only gotten deeper and it's only gotten more talented and more competitive. And I agree. I kind of agree with what you're saying of, I think the middle is stronger, but the upper tier added Oregon, and USC hasn't really delivered on the promise of a blue blood program. So I guess that are you saying like they're setting this up to get as many teams as possible into the playoff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the whole goal. You look at the payout structure, you get 4 million for every team that makes the playoff, and then multiple millions on top of that for every team that advances. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they made Indiana's schedule with thinking that Indiana would be making a run at the college football playoff. But what you do when you bring 4 more teams into the mix is, it just kind of spreads everything out. You're just it's a math game at that point. I don't think it's a conspiracy or anything like that. But the SEC kind of had the same issue. You look at what Texas played this year, and that's not a great schedule either. So again, I'm firmly on team get the wins, and this is a decent setup to hopefully get the wins. The bye week before Oregon is great. It's very funny. Penn State fought hard for a home opener to the Big Ten, and they got it.
They did
with Oregon coming to town. So I think that's
it's like a love note with a grenade attached to it. Like I don't know.
It's great. And then
better than going to Oregon.
What's that?
I said it's better than going to Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon's great. But no, I mean, you look at the next schedule, you go to UCLA the following week, and what they've had this year for the most part across the conference was you go to the West Coast, you come back and you get a bye. You don't get that. Now you get Northwestern the next week, which is seemingly a softer landing. So there is that, but it's just I think they're learning about the schedules. Greg posted some of the athletic story about how they had 130 different schedule combinations or something like that. And I don't know how they do it. It seems very overly complicated, or very complicated to the point of overly complicated. But no qualms about how this worked out for Penn State, especially with those buys before Oregon and Ohio State, which what that gives us. James Franklin bye week discourse. I can't wait.
Oh, after buys. Yes. Oh, the records are going to be updated weekly as we get towards that.